per minute, so everybody, and I was going to mention that we are doing a recording of this particular webinar, so welcome everyone. And we are going to start off with just introductions to the people that'll be presenting today, so you know who will be here. We're going to try to make this a little bit, it's not an actual webinar, it's a Zoom meeting because we wanted to enable people to be able to have the opportunity to talk and ask questions. So we appreciate everybody for muting themselves. Most people came on that way. But we really do, we'll have different times throughout the webinar or the presentation today where we're going to ask people to ask questions and share information. So please engage with us. We'd appreciate it. We are super excited to kick off this webinar. This has been a long time coming. We were supposed to do this back in January and had to put it on hold. So if you signed up with us back then, we appreciate you rejoining with us for this particular one. This will be about an hour long. However, both Lorraine and Suzanne have agreed to stay on a little bit longer if people have questions and would like to talk about that. I think really the main thing we wanted to talk about was I think right now we're being pinpointed. So you're seeing Lorraine, we're going to try to handle it on our side. But if you're struggling, you can always go to your view on the top right-hand side and you can do a side-by-side presenter if that helps, because sometimes it's hard with everybody on the webinar. And all the faces. So that's something that you can do. And I think we're going to end this poll now as well, or it has ended. So hopefully people signed up, were able to put in their role. We'll have a quick evaluation at the very end of this presentation. So it'll be done very similar to what you just saw there. We will send out the recording and the slides probably next week. So anybody that was not able to join us will be able to have access to that information. And we encourage you to share it with your colleagues that maybe could not actually attend this particular presentation, but had a desire in hearing more information. And with that, I am going to hand it back over to Lorraine.
All right, I'm so glad that you're here and I get to talk about this wonderful project. And as you can see, our project is focused on supporting tribal nations to meet the needs of children and families who have created permanency through guardianship and adoption and customary adoption. What that really means is that we're working alongside tribal communities to make sure families are not left alone after permanency is achieved. The journey doesn't end with adoption or guardianship papers. It continues with supporting children as they grow and supporting families as they navigate challenges and celebrate successes. This project is about honoring the unique strengths of tribal nations, respecting their culture and traditions, and building practical resources that families can rely on. All right, the next slide. So what is permanency? In child welfare, permanency is permanent, stable living situation, ideally one in which family connections are preserved. Permanency goals may include reunification with birth parents, adoption, legal guardianship, or another permanent living arrangement. In case planning, social workers develop individualized case plans that outline the steps needed to achieve permanency for each child. And a note here is that a major contributor to youth homelessness nationwide is the failure of the child welfare system to find permanency for all children and youth in care. Simply put, permanency means family. And I certainly can relate to this because in the 80s, I worked with street kids and the majority of the Native kids came from those failed foster homes. And the they chose to rather be on the street where they were abused, beaten. They saw their friends shot at, stabbed. It was really difficult, even, myself as a young social worker, and those that were murdered or those that committed suicide. I remember all of them. I still see their faces. And they would say, we don't like being called street kids. We have a place to go. We just don't want to go there. So that, but that was a message for me that laid the groundwork for my my work, for my life's work, is really figuring out what we could do different so that our children don't end up on the streets or committing suicide. All right, so the next slide. So what does permanency look like in many tribal communities? And when a child finds permanency, whether through guardianship or adoption or customary adoption, it's not the end of the story. It's really just the beginning of a new chapter. Families still need support, children still need guidance, and culture remains at the heart of the journey. This project is about walking alongside tribal nation so that families have what they need to thrive. And so every child can grow up knowing who they are, where they come from, and that they belong. Right. Next slide. The next slide. So what is post-permanency? These services are designed to meet the unique needs of families and children to promote a stable environment. Post-permanency services, also known as post-adoption services, are a type of support for families and children that have achieved permanency. So it could look many different ways. It's unique for every tribal nation. It could, as you could look at transition, maybe for moms, we see certainly tribes that don't have any termination or parental rights, or adoption, so that at any point that parent would have a relationship and what that might look like, right? So maybe they might not live in the same place, or we think about, even fathers who haven't had a relationship because maybe they were incarcerated. What does that look like for them? So how can they be back into their child's life? So there's lots of different things to look at. And as you think about other possibilities, Suzanne, did you want to add anything to that?
No, well, okay, yeah. I think a lot of tribes do this kind of informally because, of course, they're always there for the families. But this is an opportunity, I think, to be more intentional about it and to really bring in all the partners and try to figure out how, similar to when you're working with family, when you're trying to reunify them, you want to wrap the services around the family. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank
Right.
you. And, even Suzanne and I were talking yesterday, like so often our families are going to be at the same community events or the same places. How can you work that out? Like what could be a plan around so that, that it's not disruptive? So there's lots of different things. Those are just different ideas that we talked about. So the next slide. So families always do better when services are integrated. So the positive impact of a comprehensive post-permanency program. Services can lead to increased positive parenting solutions, right? When you have a wide range of support, they're more likely to be successful. Fewer placement disruption. if they have someone or a way to reach out, or there's something there for them, or just maybe staff available just to be able to vent. There's a higher family functioning and cohesion because the whole family's impacted, right? You might have mom and dad and grandma and your children, and now you have your niece or nephew living with you. Well, everybody is impacted, right? So so thinking about what that might look like and helping or supporting family. So a better understanding of adjustments children might experience post-permanency and to be able to collaborate. Maybe it looks like workshops or peer groups or support groups. What could that maybe in your community look like? So increase ability for parents to identify and address issues when they occur, knowing they're going to happen and provide resources so that you're prepared. And so this project, maybe whatever it is that we might have, we can do a lot of things, but if we don't have it, we have resources that can help provide and bring on those people to be part of the team once you identify what it is that you would like to be doing. So, and then of course, to have access to cultural connection and to prove self-esteem and identity. And this creates opportunities for us to continue to learn together. All right, the next slide. All right, so we wanted to have open to a little discussion, and you can use the on your app, your hand, raise hand, you can unmute, or you could write in the chat. And Dejari, thank you, she's gonna help us with that. And so our first part of the question is, what pre and post permanencies do you currently provide? Like, what are you doing right now? Do you have anything that you could share with us in the chat, or if you would like to unmute? So some communities do honoring foster parents. They have dinners, or they have picnics, you know, things to let foster parents know how much they're appreciated. Some have groups like cradleboard classes or beading, or groups where they get together and then the children are, or youth are in a separate group, but it's an opportunity to come together. So what would maybe you'd like to share with us what you're doing? So either in the chat, or if anybody wants to unmute. All right, Renessa.
So I live in, I guess, the middle of the United States. We're in the corner of South Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa, and we have a urban native center. And so we've incorporated in Iowa specifically funds to host a cultural support group for the children. And then we have someone that also does a teen night as well. And then I know another leader also holds Sons program there, so it's lots of different tribes coming together. I was trying to look for my information on how many tribes we actually have. I think it's close to 50 in the Siouxland area with our demographics. So that's why they decided to call it the Urban Native Center. And so specifically, I'm a post-adoption support worker and also the tribal customary adoption support worker for the state of Iowa. But we have tribes from all over. And so we just try to encompass that and support and bring in different speakers. Sometimes it's like drumming, sometimes it's making of different things, and then also the explanation, depending on our audience. They'll go over like ceremonies and what different things mean. And then we have a parent group, which sometimes is non-natives. But there can be Native American parents in there too, just learning about what tribal specific certain things mean. And I know we've had a really great turnout. I think our last class we had 25 participants. And then in the children's class, they actually had 50. So, I mean, it seems like it's growing every year.
Mhm. That is wonderful. Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for sharing that with us.
And we do have one comment in the chat from Kimberly. Through a volunteer family preservation program, we provide staff access for any resource guidance needed. We also join forces with a state program that holds a conference for foster and adoption parents once per month. We share about cultural gatherings or opportunities that come up.
And we're working with Kimberly right now. So she's staff for the first Native Nation we're working with. Oh, and Maria's on too.
Hey, Suzanne, that was me typing it. It wasn't Kimberly, but she forwarded me the information. This is Maria Guerra. So hi, I'm
Hi,
here.
Maria.
Kimberly's out on vacation. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so Maria's our first person that her community that we're working with. So we're really glad that you're here, Maria, today. So, that she was, it's always sometimes we don't want to be the first. So thank you for being the first. And we couldn't have asked for a better group of people to work with. So thank you.
Thank you.
So if you had a magic wand, what kind of services would you like to provide? Maybe you could either unmute or put that in the chat. So Renessa and both Maria shared some wonderful opportunities for foster parents and kids. And what else would you like to see?
Like if all of your dreams came true for the families, what would those services look like?
And so we do have a comment from Bernice. She says Leech Lake is in the process of hiring a post-permanency worker and will be starting post-permanency services. Maria also indicated a visual menu of options that truly fit that Deneen model of care, treating the whole person.
Danae, yeah.
Danae, thank you.
Childcare. Yeah.
And Constance indicated free childcare that is culturally appropriate.
Well, and I guess too, like where I live, we have grandparents taking grandchildren and they want TCAs to be done, but subsidy is not always available for the children. And so that sometimes can create a financial strain on the grandparents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Adequate housing, that's the other one in our area, is that it's a common thing that we talk about at the Urban Native Center, that there's not enough housing. And so that also is a big stress, especially if they take on more relatives. Sometimes we don't have a place to move them that is adequate.
Yes, we've been hearing that a lot about not having adequate housing, both in tribal communities and urban areas, affordable housing. Thank you. All right. So we'll have more time at the end. So if you have other questions and it comes to you, we're going to be here. So we'll have time at the end. And also, we also shared that Suzanne and I will stay on if there's anything else that you want to talk about. We'll be here. All right. Thank you.
All right. So now I'm going to talk about the center, which is where hopefully we can work with you to make these dreams come true and put these services into place for your families. So the Post-Adoption Center was funded to serve tribal nations, states, and territories who want to develop these post-permanency programs. So we started in October 2023. So we're just about to start into year 3 of the program. It's a collaborative agreement funded by the Children's Bureau, and this is the group of experts that have come together to support the center. So Lorraine and Kathy Deserly were originally brought in to make the program appropriate to work with tribes. Kathy abandoned us. And so I was brought in, I was given the opportunity to work with Lorraine and everybody to work on the on-site technical work. And we still have access to Kathy, which is good.
She's still a consultant, but in the background now instead of the forefront. Yeah.
Well, I was glad to get the opportunity. Next slide, please. So the center can support tribal nations in 3 ways. We're a hub for post-permanency expertise and evidence-informed training and technical assistance. To work with all the sites, Lorraine and I are mostly working with the tribal nations, but the center also works with states and territories to develop these post-permanency services. So there is the on-site technical assistance, which is what Lorraine and I are doing with Maria right now. And that's what we're going to be talking about mostly today. But I really want to point out some of the other things that the center has available. They have a terrific webpage, and through that you can access universal technical assistance, and that's peer groups, quarterly site chats, webinars, individualized assistance, and all sorts of resources where people can come together as a group. There's also a comprehensive resource library, and I always like to brag on this because Djari, not only do they have a lot of resources that are available to you, you can also work with Djari and she can help you locate them. So it's almost like you have this huge library, but you've also got someone to help you navigate the library itself. And I think that's really one of the highlights of this program, because I've gone to web pages and kind of gotten lost in looking for what I'm identifying what I'm looking for. And so having someone you can work with, I think is terrific. And so we're going to talk about the on-site technical assistance, which is kind of the focus of what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so all of those partners that you saw on a previous slide have had a lot of experience working with families and working with jurisdictions. And this is a visual of what they think a comprehensive program would look like to really wrap the families and services. So we're going to take some time to kind of go around the visual here and talk about what those services might look like. So first, and I'm going to ask Lorraine and Melinda to chime in here on what these might look like. So first at the top, there's pre-permanency services. And for the 4E tribes in the room, you enter into an adoption agreement or a guardianship assistance agreement with your families when it's clear that reunification isn't going to happen. And that's an opportunity to really sit down and talk with the families about what they might need and to make clear to them that you will be accessible to them should they run into bumps along the way in the raising the child and supporting the child. But even if you're not a 4E tribe, this is an opportunity, this is a time to really come together and be intentional about working with the family and helping them know and understand that you will be there for them and giving them information on who that'll be. Another thing that you might want to think about is a comprehensive assessment to really look at the family, look at the child, look at the extended family, and think about the needs that that family is going to have moving into the future, just so you can kind of anticipate what might be needed. Lorraine or Melinda, did you want to chime in and talk about what that assessment might look like?
You, Melinda.
Yes, I can add something there. So, and just to go back one step, as Suzanne mentioned, these are all components that we have in our model, and there is a manual that goes into this model in detail in the library, and Dejari has put up that link. However, when we're working with tribal nations, we don't have to actually implement all of the components. And I think that's important to really mention, that there can be, we are under the assumption that a lot of tribal nations may be interested in the pre-permanency support, which Suzanne just went through. However, some tribal nations may be interested in these other components. I know Maria with the Kenaitze tribe is interested in all of them. So we're going to get to try that out. But for the comprehensive assessment, we usually tie that along with counseling so that when families are contacting a tribal nation after they've moved to customary adoption, guardianship, or adoption, and they're starting to have some difficulties and they're reaching out for help, we are basically saying in our model that it's really important to do that comprehensive assessment, so that as you begin to refer them on to services, that we have a really good idea of the needs of that child and family, and that we can ensure that what we're referring them are actually going to address those needs and help them to become back at a more stable place again.
I saw Maria popped up, or did you want to add something to this, Maria?
I guess I will. I just came back on camera. I had to take a quick call. We're always, responding to crises around here.
Oh, sorry.
But no, you're good. One of the things that I'm always thinking about is those families that waited way too long to reach out for help. I've seen it myself. I've been with Kenaitze for 10 years now, and I've seen a couple of families that struggled so much to the point where it disrupted that family, which meant that the child needed to go somewhere else. This was after the adoption. And I wish we would have been able to have something in place, where we would have educated families when they finalize their adoption, that after that adoption, they could still come back anytime, and that this would be the list of resources they could be provided. At the first challenge, when children are going through those adolescent years and everything is changing, that they can come back to us, have a conversation and say, I'm starting to struggle with this. I'm going to need some supports, where we can then already have some ideas lined up of things that we can connect them with, and not just last minute, we're responding to 3 crises on that day, have very little time to provide families, and have to try to problem solve and think about lists of resources. I would rather have a pre-plan to go ahead and have something to go by when these families reach out, and having them know that they can reach out and have these options. That's it.
That's terrific. Thanks, Maria.
And that's a great tie back to the pre-permanency support. So that's an excellent example of the importance of not only doing it at the time of that they're moving on to permanency, but continually putting out information and letting families know. Because the research shows us that it's 11 years after finalization that families usually start to experience some type of discontinuity. And that does align with the teen years, right? So it is really important to continue to have information sent out to families to let them know, we can help you. This is how we can help you. Come back to us before they enter that crisis phase, because I think all of us know that's very hard at that point.
Yeah. And like Melinda said, so these are that all the components of this model are helpful But if you work with us on a project, you get to choose what your priority is. That's one of the things I really appreciate about this program is they've provided us with a lot of flexibility. So you have a lot of flexibility on what these might look like with the phone support. Marie and I were talking about it, and they have one of the things they'd like to emphasize with the families is that, call us before things turn into a complete emergency. And we're here, regular business hours, but there's also a crisis line I think they're going to have available after hours. So that's what it might look like at Kenaitze. It might look completely different where you are. You might not have the resources to have that after-hour crisis line, and that's okay. It's just a matter of putting in place what you can put into place. And the next part of that model is the crisis intervention. Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Thank you. And when I first started working for Kenaitze 10 years ago, and when we talked about a crisis line for DVSA responses, it seemed like a really big challenge at first. And it took us thinking about a way that we could do it with the current resources. And it really just came down to getting an extra cell phone and giving people hours for taking that cell phone with them after hours, and staff took turns. That's what it turned out to be for us. It didn't have to be this big, expensive system staffed by other people. It just came down to just having staff take turns and manning that phone.
And the manning of the phone can look different because one of the services that I took advantage of is we had a young person who went missing, and it was via text. So there I was at 12:30 in the morning texting, and there was someone on the other side helping, coaching me. This is who you can contact. This is what you should look at. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? So it can look a lot of different ways, and still be. I mean, it just was nice to know that someone was on the other end of the phone, and I wasn't waking up my whole family, and I was still getting the support and the help that I needed. Educational advocacy, it's always helpful to have as many eyes on the kids and the family as possible. And a lot of times the issues are first seen by the school. So it's nice to have them as part of your partnership in supporting the family. Support groups, and those can look a lot of different ways. I mean, Lorraine was talking about having a group that gets together and does beading, or, and there's childcare available. So someone had mentioned culturally appropriate childcare. Those support groups can look all different ways. It doesn't have to be everyone getting together and talking about what's going on with the family. It could be just an opportunity for people to gather and support each other. It could be a talking circle. It can look all sorts of different ways. Lorraine, did you want to pop in on that?
I think you cover it because there's so many different ways that support groups can work and be really creative. Like I shared, there was a, making cradle boards, it could be anything. But feeling that support, being with other foster parents or guardian, and also having that childcare that goes with it, that seems to be, how can we do all of it? So that's what's really, making the pieces fit so that they are able to participate in those support groups. And that peer-to-peer support seems to be really powerful. So, or it could be elders being part of those support groups, or you can have different topics where they come together. And so it doesn't feel like you're telling them how to be a parent, but having themes or topics that they select and choose, and then you can also have speakers come in. So there's lots of creative things you can do around support groups, what you think will work for you. All right.
Can I ask you to talk about respite care?
Yeah, it's so interesting because maybe a couple of years ago I started doing research on respite care, and I always thought of respite care like, maybe take the kids away for a week or two and you give them a break. But respite care could be a lot of different things. Respite care could be that the kids are in an after school program where the grandparent or the guardians or whatever have a couple of hours, but they get picked up and they get brought back. And so that they can have some time, it could look different depending on what will work in your community. Sometimes it's being able to have the finances for the kids to go to camp, but it could be day camp, just so that they get this time to replenish. Respite care is really needed because they are dealing with crises and all of the other things that are going on. And once in a while, just to have that break. And so when I started looking into it, I thought, wow, there is so many different ways that we could be providing respite care in our communities, and not to think like this big project, like there are programs that just do respite care, but how would that look like? And I think like Maria shared about the phone, you could have a big system, right? But you also could think about what can we do in our community that wouldn't take, more staff, a lot of money, but how can we think about how that would work, and then how um, as we came in, we could help support you and help create that. All right, thanks for letting me talk about that. It's my new thing.
And then bringing everything together is those cultural connections. Because we know that culture is healing, culture is identity. It's your feeling of self-worth. It's what brings everything together for these services, for these kids and these families.
Yeah, I mean, the research is showing that kids who are drumming or singing or doing these things are not drinking, not dropping out of school, and not committing suicide. We have the highest suicide rate in the world with our young people at the identity time. And the interesting thing about the research was it doesn't even have to be your tribe. Just if you're involved in some way, it makes a big difference. And we have the research to show that. Thanks.
So I guess we wanted to leave some space here to see if anyone had questions or comments about the model and how that might look, which one you would choose to start with, I guess.
We're also going to have more opportunity at the end. So we just in case, we thought if you had any comments, this would be a good time. Okay, well, Suzanne was going to talk about on-site next. Oh, did we get something in the chat?
Linda is asking people to think about if there was a component that they would be most interested in implementing.
Oh, yeah, good question. If you want to write that in the chat or unmute, that would be great.
That's okay. We can just, so the next thing is going to be explaining how it would be that we would support you in putting these, whatever you would like to put it together. Okay, so someone would like to, would focus on the comprehensive assessment first. Thank you, Bernice. So Lorraine and I and Melinda and the whole team is here to support you in putting one of these programs together. At the beginning of TA, We'll send you an email talking about the process. So we have a couple of meetings first. So we kind of go through this. We ask you to put together a team, and so we can give you an idea, introduce ourselves, start building the relationship, and go through what this process looks like. If you decide you want to move forward with us, and we hope you do, we would start teaching ourselves about your program. We would ask you to send us if you have any policies and procedures, how your child welfare system works, so we can really do our homework and work with you to learn about what you already have in place right now and have conversations. I see Cynthia put in a yes, so we're recording this webinar, and we will be able to get you the slides as well afterwards, Cynthia. So we do this assessment in collaboration with you. That's what we're doing with Maria right now, is we're trying to educate ourselves as much as possible. And the phone calls with Maria and her team are really about, okay, this is what we read. Did we have this correct? And really just continue to talk. And she keeps on giving ideas of, I'd like to put this in place. I'd like to put that in place. Maria and I have worked together before, and I know she likes to go big or go home. So she's really gonna, she's working us, and that's great. After we have an assessment done, we create a report. We come on site and we present it to you and your team. And whoever elected leadership, we really, we'd like to engage as many people as possible. And that's an opportunity for everyone to hear what's in place and be thinking about what role they might play when the program is put together. Then we prioritize what it is you would like to do. And then we develop a plan that helps keep everybody on track and helps everyone understand that what we've done and what we're going to do. And I found that those plans are real helpful when you're trying to communicate with elected leadership that this is what we're doing. So that's in a way, kind of a service, I think, that we can provide to you. And then after you've prioritized what you'd like to put in place, that's when we get to work. And we continue to work with you and have conversations with you. And the idea of this program, as Melinda has told me, is that we do the heavy lifting. Like if there's, a protocol that needs to be created, you tell us what you want in the protocol and we put it together. We know that you are all busy and that you have a lot of juggling a lot of balls, and so we really try to partner with you in that way. Linda, did you want to add into that? No? Okay. I must have got it right. So it's, it can be as long as 18 months, or it can be, if we can get in there and you just have one small ask that you want to develop a resource for families, then, it can be less than 18 months. But we try to so we can serve as many people as possible. We try to limit it at 18 months per project. Let's see, is this a slide?
Hey, Suzanne, I am going to add one thing. Sorry. If you ask, I'm always find something. But I would just say, just to make sure that for people that might have joined us later on the call, this TA is all related to post-permanency. So it's the pre and the post-permanency. So it's preparing families for movement to guardianship, customary adoption or adoption, or it's for helping the families once they've moved into that new chapter and how we as a system support them. So I just wanted to make sure, because there's a couple people that joined along the way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next slide. So, we want to be of service to you. And so these are some of the ways that, the comprehensive assessment with this program and in a program I worked previously, it really the nations that I work with really like to have that overview of what they had in place, because that helped them prioritize and plan ahead. We can also, it's part of this is assisting, working with you to develop the plan to create these services. We're assessing your team of individuals. You have access to a team of individuals who have expertise in this area, and we have people with lived experience on the team. And so they bring a lot of wisdom and understanding to this. Assistance with data tracking, that's a common issue if you're still counting cases by hand, maybe we can help you create a spreadsheet or some kind of tracking system so you kind of get an idea. You might know intuitively where your families are at, but if you have the numbers that, okay, they're coming back to us at 11 years, this is what we can expect. That's what that data tracking can help you provide you with. There is some funding attached with this. And it's kind of, I don't think we can give a firm number on what that would be, because it kind of depends on how many tribal nations we work with. Did I get that right, Melinda? Yeah, okay. But there is funding. So if you want to create a resource, a pamphlet to give out to families, we can help fund that you don't have to find the funding for that yourself out of your budget. And that can look a lot of different ways what that funding can support. So I think that's a really exciting part of this project. And the more Native nations that we work with, the more sites that you're going to have that you can come together as a peer group yourselves and talk about the things that you're facing and solutions that other tribes are finding. All right. So Cynthia wants a brochure. Awesome. Okay, next slide. So this is how we start the technical assistance with you. We're doing outreach right now. But if you know someone who might be interested in working with us, they can refer themselves. Just by, again, our contact information is at the bottom of this PowerPoint. And like I said, we start with the exploratory meeting so we can get to know each other and we can talk about what the service provides and what you might be interested in. And we talk about how the whole process works. If you're interested in exploring the TA, we'll have a second meeting, possibly with the bigger group, with some more of your partners, so we can engage them and get a sense of what your needs might be. And then if you want to move forward, it's as simple as sending us an email saying, yeah, we'd like to do this. And it could be as long or, well, not as long, 18 months on the outside. But if it's just a real quick project, we can accommodate those too. And I think Lorraine is the next slide.
Okay. We also want to quickly talk about that Suzanne and I worked on a universal project that we're very excited about, and we'll send you information because we have now your emails. But one of the things that happens when children are adopted out or in foster homes that are not in their community, they often get calls, right? And the tribe gets calls and they want information. And one of the things in Washington and Oregon, they're supposed to have a cultural plan, they agree. And then we hear from them, they go, I called the tribe, but nobody called me back, or I don't know what's happening. And so, so to keep that connection, that we created a template with suggested language, but it would include, your maybe something from, welcoming them or from maybe the tribal council, but then say maybe having a calendar of events, one of the, if you have powwows or you have certain things that they're invited to, because even if they live at a distance, if they see what that calendar is, they may choose then to be there for those special events. So kind of looking at those different areas, if sometimes they want to learn about enrollment, maybe you'll have a list of resources. So you have a packet that's ready. So when someone calls, you would have everything, the questions that they would want to inquire about a child that's from your community that's been adopted out or in foster care outside of your community. Did you want to add? I know we don't have a lot of time, Suzanne. Anything you want to add about that before I do the next?
Yeah, so that's the first universal product we're working on. It's going to be available on the webpage, but Lorraine and I have been thinking about other projects or products that we might be able to create. And we're also really interested in hearing from you about what kind of resources and materials would be helpful for you, for us to provide on the webpage so that they're available to everybody.
All right, so the center can provide on-site TA for about 5 sites per year. And each physical year, it includes 4 states and at least 1 tribal nation. If a tribal nation wants to move forward with a comprehensive project, that will take the full 18 months that Suzanne was talking about, and will only work with 1 tribal nation. If, however, a tribal nation requests a shorter project, for example, developing a pre-permanency services and materials for family, we might be able to work with more than 1 tribal nation in a fiscal year. We're trying to be flexible so we can support many tribal nations as possible while still giving each site the time and attention it deserves. We have a tribal nation identified that we're working with right now, Kanaitsi, and for on-site TA, which started in August. We'll be looking on bringing on another tribal nation sometime in late fall, early winter. Okay, so 25, 26. A tribal nation that is interested can put their name or email or phone in the chat, and we can reach out to you or we can email you. And on the next slide is going to have our email and information. We're going to head with more questions and answers, but before we do that, there is a survey in the chat, and please make sure to complete that before you close out with us today. So here's our information. Both Suzanne and I are outside consultants, so we don't have a Spalding email, so you might not. So we want you to know that's who we are, and Brave Transitions is the name of my consulting organization. And so you would hear from us if you respond. And so we just wanted to clarify that because I know sometimes if you see an email, you don't know who it is, you don't open it, but it would be us and we're good. So any other questions that anybody might have? If you want to unmute or put in the chat.
Bailey, that's terrific. Yeah, and we should have said that at the opening, but in order to be eligible for services, you need to be a 4B or a 4E tribe at this time. So
But the universal project, anybody.
for anybody,
Anybody.
yeah. If you want to talk with Dejari about what resources are available or just talk through things with us, I know Lorraine and I like to make ourselves available.
So you can still use the resource library and all kinds of things, and you can always talk to us. You can always contact us. But as far as doing an 18-month project and providing financial resources, you have to be 4E or 4B. All right. any other questions, thoughts?
Beach Lake is also interested, which Bernice put in there.
Which I'm totally excited about. I love Leech Lake. You guys put together some really great programming. And so I'd be interested in seeing what else you'd like to put together.
All right, so I want to say we are available to everybody. But the emphasis is for E4B in order to get certain, the whole program, right? Well, Linda, did you want to say anything in closing us out for today?
Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking an hour out of your day, and we are very excited about working with tribal nations on this project and think there's a lot that we can partner with. So feel free on that last slide that we just put down, but I also put the tribal nations brochure in the chat. So the information's in there. Reach out to us if you haven't already put it in the chat. If you did put it in the chat, we'll be reaching out to you. And all of this, as we probably have mentioned, is free. So it's something that's done through the Children's Bureau. So thank you so much.
We'll stay on if anybody wants to continue to talk or chat. We're here and we look forward to hearing from you.